realities: existence, love, sacrifice, renunciation, knowledge, control, and surrender. I give no importance to creed, dogma, caste, or the performance of religious ceremonies and rites, but to the understanding of the following. 1. The only real existence is that of the one and only God, who is the self in every finite self. 2. The only real love is the love for this infinity God, which arouses an intense longing to see, know, and become one with its truth, God. 3. The only real sacrifice is that in which, in persons of this love, all things, body, mind, position, welfare, and even life itself are sacrificed. 4. The only real renunciation is that which abandons, even in the midst of worldly duties, all selfish thoughts and desires. 5. The only real knowledge is the knowledge that God is the inner dweller in good people and in so called bad, in saint and in so called sinner. This knowledge requires you to help all equally as the circumstances demand, without expectation of reward, when compelled to take part in a dispute, to act without the slightest trace of enmity or hatred, to try to make others happy with brotherly or sisterly feeling for each one, and to harm no one in thought, word, or deed, even those who harm you. The only real control is the discipline of senses to abstain from indulgence in low desires, which alone ensures absolute purity of character. The only real surrender is that in which poise is undisturbed by any adverse circumstance, and the individual, amidst every kind of hardship, is resigned with perfect calm to the will of God. Given by Meher Baba in 1952, Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai.
And Baba Ki Jai. Thank you.
Over to you, Karthik and Sanjay.
Sure.
Jai Baba. Jai Baba. Don't
So,
worry.
you can come back when it's good
Karthik,
for you.
Yeah.
Baba,
Yeah.
Sanjay, and Karthik. Three of us are there still.
Absolutely.
Baba, Sanjay, and Karthik.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Jai Baba.
Baba's presence is always
Jai Baba.
there. Yes. He's omnipresent.
Yes.
Jai Baba.
So, coming to our discourses journey, we are down to just three themes now: reincarnation and karma, yoga and meditation. We finished ego on the 26th of May, and now we are starting with the ego had three parts. We finished all the three parts. We also read the references linked to that. So now reincarnation and karma has seven parts, and we have added two more: sanctification of married life and problem of sex after the fifth part. So we will read it in the sequence 1 to 5, then the two chapters on sex and sanctification of married life, and then 6 and 7 to complete the whole theme. So with that, let's dive straight into what are the subtitles and then read the chapter. So the first part, reincarnation and karma. By the way, I think I should introduce the part titles which are there here. So it's significance of death, right? So what is significance of death and what are the subtitles? So significance of death, identification of the soul with the gross body, death as a background of life, continuity of life, attachment to specific forms, problems of impersonal intellect, and conflict between intellect and intuition, immortality of the soul, three worlds, effects of untimely death, irresistible impulsion. Death begins interval between incarnations. So that's where the stage is set for the idea of reincarnation and karma. So with that, let's get started. Sanjay, me first, you first.
Yeah, you go first. I'll come.
Okay, done.
We
Sure,
do
no
two
problem.
sessions each. We'll do two sessions each.
Done. No, I'm just checking. Yeah. Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai. Reincarnation and Karma, Part 1. The significance of death. Identification of soul with gross body. The worldly person completely identifies life with the manifestation and activities of the gross body. For him, therefore, the beginning and the end of bodily existence are also the beginning and the end of the individualized soul. All his experience seems to testify to the transitoriness of the physical body. And he has often witnessed the disintegration of physical bodies that were once vibrant with life. Hence, he is naturally impelled to believe that life is coterminous with bodily existence. So, Baba's favorite phrase, which is regularly used in um, discourses, let's just mark it. Yeah, individualized soul. Death as a background of life. As the worldly individual considers death to be the cessation of life, he gives great importance to it. There are few, however, who contemplate death for prolonged periods. And in spite of the fact that most persons are completely engrossed in their worldly pursuits, they are impressed by the incident of death when confronted by it. For most people, the earthly scene of life has, as its background, the inevitable and irresistible fact of death, which imperceptibly enters into their greatest triumphs and achievements, their keenest pleasures and rejoicing. So the first one is the person basically keeps thinking that the person is the body. The second one, there is there are some people who think a lot more about death, and we say morbid thoughts, right? So people having morbid thoughts. So some are more than others, but overall, all people seem to carry some kind of background in thinking or background processing about the concept of death. It's a we know it is there at the back all the time, right? That's the point that's being made. Apart from being the general background to the scene of life, death also assumes an accentuated and overwhelming importance among the variegated incidents of life. Death falls among those happenings that are most dreaded and lamented. People, in malice or anger, try to inflict death upon each other as the last penalty or the worst revenge, or they rely upon it as the surest way of removing aggression or interference by others. People also invite death upon themselves as the token of supreme self sacrifice, and at times they seek it with the false hope of putting an end to all the worldly worries and problems they are unable to face or solve. Thus, in minds of most persons, death assumes an accentuated and overwhelming importance. Concept of suicide, concept of death for revenge, that is one inflicting death on the other, then others waiting the death of the other person, or rather people waiting for the death of the other person to actually put an end to something that the other is doing upon himself, and so on and so forth, right? All three are explained here. Continuity of life. The overwhelming importance of death is derived from man's attachment to particular forms. But death loses much of its sting and importance, even for the worldly, if one takes a broader view of the course of life. In spite of their transitoriness, there is an unbroken continuity of life through these forms, old ones being discarded and new ones being created for habitation and expression. The recurring incidence of death is matched by the recurring incidence of birth. Old generations are replaced by new ones. Life is reborn in new forms, incessantly renewing and refreshing itself. The streams of life, with their ancient origin, are ever advancing onward through the forms that come and go like the waves of the ocean. I liked this expression. Old ones being discarded and new ones being created for habitation and expression. Uh, you
Also,
have
the
you
ocean, ocean simile.
yeah. It
Normally,
has
we
actually
hear
given a
light and darkness, day and
correct,
night.
yeah.
These are the most common ones. This is not so common.
Correct.
Good.
This is also given a title of a book that Baba has written, right? The advancing stream of life. So
Yes,
this
yes.
is an expression that is popular here. So basically, he uh, adds on to evolution to say what is the reason for life going through these multiple forms. So advancing life form, I mean, stream of life, right? Stream of, is
Yes,
that the
yes.
book?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
that advancing stream of life. Yeah.
Correct, correct. And there life refers to multiple forms. Yeah. Anyway, let's continue. Attachment to specific forms. So even within the limits of experience of the worldly, there is much that should mitigate morbid thoughts of death as being an irreparable loss. A sane attitude toward death is possible only if life is considered impersonally and without any attachment to particular forms. This the worldly person finds difficult because of his entanglement with specific forms. For him, one form is not as good as another. The form he identifies himself with is by far the most important. The general preservation and advancement of the stream of life has for him no special interest. What the worldly individual craves is a continuation of his own form and other particular forms with which he is entangled. His heart cannot reconcile itself to his intellect. With the vanishing of the forms that have been dear to him, he becomes a victim of unending sorrow. Though life as a whole may have replaced elsewhere the lost forms with new ones. So when our close ones leave us, we are in unending sorrow. The sorrow of death, on closer analysis, turns out to be rooted in selfishness. The person who loses his beloved may know intellectually that life as a whole has elsewhere compensated for the loss, but his only feeling is, what is that to me? When one looks at it from one's own personal point of view, death becomes a cause of unending sorrow. From the point of view of life in general, it is an episode of minor importance. Problems of impersonal intellect. Impersonal considerations go a long way to fortify the mind against the personal sorrow caused by death. But they do not by themselves solve the wider problems that confound even the impersonal intellect of man when he considers some of the implications of death within the limits of his ordinary experience. If death is regarded as the final annihilation of individual existence, there seems to be an irreparable loss to the universe. Each individual may be in a position to give to the universe something so unique that no one else can exactly replace it. Further, in most cases, there is the cutting short of an earthly career long before the attainment of spiritual perfection by the individual. All his struggles towards the ideal, all his endeavor and enthusiasm for the great, the good, and the beautiful, and all his aspirations for things divine and eternal seem to end in the vast nothingness created by death. So, when we are faced with people who question the principle of reincarnation, this is one of the defenses that are really strong, right? He
Yeah.
says, he says that if there is a good soul, if there is a soul that has spent all its time in pursuit of the divine, the good stuff, the to attainment of spiritual perfection, but suddenly it ends in vast nothingness created by death, right? How can that be true? If there was if death was the logical conclusion of each individualized soul, then that doesn't make sense. So that's another way of looking at it.
Mhm.
See, I think those of us in the path, or those of us, especially from India, we kind of take the concept of reincarnation to be, I mean, for granted.
Yes,
Nobody
yes,
questions it,
yes,
right?
yes.
Whereas
Yeah,
if
yeah,
you
yeah.
go to the Western world, if you go to the non-Hindu people, especially the Abrahamic religions, that's where you realize how deep-rooted the
First, are like the elephant. We have to work very hard in the office because we have got so many demands.
Oh, okay. That's somebody's mic. Sorry. Yeah. So the deep-rooted resistance to the idea of reincarnation, right? Only then we understand. But yeah, this is a nice point.
Yes, yes, yes. Baba has
Conflict between.
explained that actually. You see,
Uh-huh.
actually, both are in fact same because there is only one real birth and one real death. So,
Yeah.
I mean, we have all read this. It's only they say in Islam that all the souls at the day of the Qiyamah they call it.
Yes.
Everybody will
Reckoning, day
meet
of reckoning. Yeah.
in the day of reckoning. They will meet God. So that's the real birth that would happen, right? So they will be born, and that will be the real birth. And Baba also says the real birth is only when you meet him. That's your real birth. It's
Correct.
only Baba has explained that,
Correct.
I suppose.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Absolutely. No, in fact, it's acknowledged as. I mean, I don't know if Baba mentioned it, but I believe that the Bible has distorted references that existed about reincarnation in the early editions or whatever, right? So there is a theory that the church uh, distanced itself or whatever, right? Anyway, we are not getting into what is the religious detail of how it is handled. We'll stick to what Baba has said. And yes, I agree. Let's continue. Conflict between intellect and intuition. The implications in assuming death to be the termination of individual existence run counter to the ineradicable expectations based upon rationalized intuition. A conflict arises between the claims of intuition and the conclusions of impure intellect, which assumes death to be the termination of individual existence. Such conflict is often a beginning of pure thinking, which immediately seriously challenges the usually accepted belief that death is the real termination of individual existence. Death, as an extinction of life, can never be wholly acceptable to the spiritual aspirations of man. Therefore, belief in the immortality of the individualized soul is often accepted by the human mind without much resistance, even in the absence of direct supersensible knowledge about the existence of life after death. Just what we were talking now. Those who know from personal experience the immortality of the soul to be true are few. Supersensible knowledge of the existence of life after death is inaccessible to the vast majority of persons. For them, immortality must remain an agreeable and acceptable belief, but nothing more. It becomes a part of personal knowledge for those who, through their interest in the occult, have built up means of communication with other worlds, or those whose special circumstances have resulted in their personally experiencing the appearance or intervention of departed spirits, or those who, through their spiritual advancement, have automatically unfolded certain latent perceptual capacities of the inner vehicles of consciousness. So, but for others, we just take a leap of faith, right? So, once we understand the logical construct that exists in the inevitability of reincarnation, we accept it. But Others also have other means of getting there. Immortality of the soul. Immortality of the individualized soul is made possible by the fact that the individualized soul is not the same as the physical body. The individualized soul continues to exist with all its sanskaras in the inner worlds through its mental and subtle bodies, even after it has discarded its gross body at the time of death. Hence, life through the medium of the gross body is only a section of the continuous life of the individualized soul. The other sections of its life have their expression in other spheres. And now we get to the three spheres, three worlds. Nature is much greater than what a person can perceive through the ordinary senses of the physical body. The hidden aspects of nature consist of finer matter and forces. There is no unbridgeable gulf separating the finer aspects of nature from its gross aspect. They all interpenetrate one another and exist together. The finer aspects of nature are not perceptible to the ordinary individual, but they are nevertheless continuous with the gross aspect that is perceptible to him. They are not remote, and yet they are inaccessible to the consciousness that is functioning through the physical senses, which are not adapted for perceiving those finer aspects of nature. The ordinary person is unconscious of the inner planes, just as someone deaf is unconscious of sounds and he cannot deal with them consciously. For all practical purposes, therefore, they are other worlds for him, in quotes. The finer and hidden part of nature has two important divisions, namely the subtle and the mental, corresponding to the subtle and the mental bodies of man. The whole of nature may therefore be conveniently divided into three parts: the gross world, the subtle world, and the mental world. When the individualized soul has incarnated in a physical body, it expresses its life in the gross world. When it drops the outer sheath, the physical body, it continues to have its expression of life either in the subtle world through the subtle body or in the mental world through the mental body. Ordinarily, life in the physical body is terminated only when the sanskaras released for expression in that incarnation are all worked out. The subtopic is effects of untimely death. In some exceptional cases, the soul gives up its gross body before the working out of these sanskaras is completed. For example, an individual who commits suicide cuts short the period of his life artificially and therefore prevents the working out of those sanskaras that were released for fructification. When, due to untimely death, the sanskaras released for fructification are withheld from expression, the discarnate soul remains subject to the propelling force of these sanskaras even after the physical body has been discarded. The momentum of the sanskaras that were prevented from being worked out is retained even in life after death, with the result that the departed spirit greatly desires the things of the gross world. Irresistible impulsion. In such cases, the discarnate soul
Now, I think
experiences
we
an
have seen these
irresistible.
the little kids that we see,
Mhm.
many of them. We find there is sometimes a very unique uh, affection
Prodigy.
or liking or
Mhm.
insistence on certain things, which we assume why he has that,
Mm.
So this is I've seen it in my family. My brother-in-law's kid, when he was just born, 6 months, 1 year, that age, he was so obsessed with mobile. Matlab, nothing else he would insist upon. Just that mobile. We
Mm.
used to say that probably he was doing some research or something. Most kids are, but he was
He's
too obsessive about it. So we see these kinds of things. It definitely comes from his past life experiences. Yes.
absolutely
So your mental and subtle bodies are carried forward. These are the examples which we can relate to. Of course.
correct. I was reminded of prodigies, right? When you said
Yeah.
things.
Already.
So
Yes. Yes.
child
Yes.
child prodigies are nothing but that, right? So how do you
Yes.
explain somebody so young, so
Yes.
proficient in
Yes.
something that's obviously a skill?
Yeah.
It's a skill that
Yes.
takes
Yes.
years of development, but then they just,
Yes.
pick it up. So that's obviously sanskar.
Yeah. So yesterday I was just reading about that. There is one saint Ram Bhadracharya who was blind, and
Correct.
he was blind at the age of 2 months, and
Mhm.
he memorized the whole Gita when he was 5 years. How is that possible?
Wow.
Read
Exactly.
about him. He's very
Exactly.
unique, very interesting actually.
Okay.
He's that blind fellow. You
He's,
see a lot of reels on
yeah,
Facebook and
I see
also
that. Yeah.
yeah. Just read about him on Wikipedia. I was just simply amazed. A blind kid, which could not see beyond 2 months, memorized the whole Gita. How is that possible? So these are the child properties. People playing drums at 4,
Um,
so beautiful. Or piano, we see all these talent shows and all that. These are people who have bought that talent from their previous life, that which cannot be taught in such short period of life.
correct.
Hey, Baba.
Yeah, Babu. Yeah. Thank you. Irresistible impulsion. In such cases, the discarnate soul experiences an irresistible impulsion toward the gross world and craves gross objects so badly that it seeks gratification of its desires through the gross bodies of those souls still incarnate. Thus, for example, the discarnate soul may want so much to drink alcohol that it takes to unnatural methods of gratifying the craving. It awaits its opportunity. When it finds someone who is a suitable medium drinking alcohol in the gross world, the spirit satisfies its own desire through that person by possessing his physical body. In the same way, if it wants to experience the gross manifestation of crude anger, it does so through someone in the gross world who is feeling angry. Such souls are constantly waiting to harass incarnate persons with similar sanskaras, and they try to maintain their contact with the gross world through others as long as possible. In life after death, any lingering entanglement with the gross world is a serious hindrance to the natural flow of the soul's onward life. Those who are subject to this precarious condition must be looked upon as particularly unfortunate, since they invite upon themselves and others much unnecessary suffering by seeking unnatural gratification of coarser desires through others who are still incarnate. Compared with these unfortunate souls, the posthumous life of other souls is much smoother. Death begins interval between incarnations. In normal cases, death occurs when all the sanskaras seeking fructification are worked out. When the soul drops its physical body, it is completely severed from all connections with the gross world. Through the ego and, sorry, read the line again. When the soul drops its physical body, it is completely severed from all connections with the gross world, though the ego and the mind are retained with all the impressions accumulated in the earthly career. Unlike the exceptional cases of spirits still obsessed with the gross world, ordinary souls try to reconcile themselves to the severance from the gross world and conform to the limitations of changed conditions. They sink into a state of subjectivity in which a new process begins of mentally reviewing the experiences of the earthly career by reviving the sanskaras connected with them. Thus, death inaugurates a period of comparative rest, consisting in a temporary withdrawal from the gross sphere of action. It is the beginning of an interval between the last incarnation and the next. Hmm. So that is part one. Any thoughts? Any questions?
Yeah, I think
No.
if we have even 10% of understanding of this, if the humanity has even 10% of understanding of this, then I think there will be so much of less pain in their hearts. Which everybody suffers
Hmm.
unknowingly or because of lack of knowledge. That's the only comment I have. This is, I
Yeah,
think,
but
something which everybody has to learn. Uh,
correct.
absorption is
The
difficult. It's not easy, but even if this information is given, that's something. In our childhood days, I think I was telling once, these kind of the calendars used to have that hand painted calendars earlier, right? When we were kids.
correct.
So those used to show all this, good karma, bad karma. There is a Yamaraj who takes you, and then there is
Mm.
you go to hell, then you are being boiled into oil and
Hot
all.
oil.
So yeah, so this was kind of something very normal. So which the education system today, or the way we are as parents organized, or so these are something which is now become tacit knowledge, which was so open everywhere. That's my thought about
No, that's true. It's also to do with our uh, idea of modernity. Our idea of
it.
modernity and scientific bent of mind
Yeah,
focuses us to think wrongly that
yeah,
these may not be true or these don't have proof. And
yeah,
but having said that, I believe personally that today, ever than ever before, we have the highest incidence of spiritual awakening and
yes,
interest. So it
yes,
has peaked, and
yes.
Baba's advent has helped expedite that. Is my
Mm-hmm.
and I'm very convinced that, I mean, the number of people taking to this, taking to spirituality, questioning, normal life is
Yeah,
higher than ever before. So if you look back 30 years, my father's generation, and so on, and to where we are now, obviously there's a huge upswing, is my belief.
yes, yes.
Okay, so let's get
Amita
to
ji is
the
here. Jai Baba, Amita ji.
Jai Baba. She's not very happy, I'm sure, because
Bye.
right now Sunil is in Myrtle Beach and she is in Singapore, I think, right?
Oh, that's bad. Married people are not allowed to go there alone. Amita ji, how did he get an entry?
जय बाबा
जय बाबा, जय बाबा। आपको
कोई
छोड़ के कैसे जा सकते हैं?
क्या बातचीत चल रही है मेरे बारे में?
मतलब आपको छोड़ के कैसे मर्टल बीच जा सकते हैं सुनील जी?
अरे कौन किसको छोड़ता है? मैंने उसको छोड़ दिया बाबा के पास जाने के
वाह
लिए।
वाह वाह,
Well
रिहाई
said,
दे दी
well
आपने,
said.
हाँ,
रिहाई दी।
I'm so happy he went. I'm like so delighted he went. I've never been there, but he had a good time.
Good.
Did he get to see Baba's room yet?
Oh yes, everything.
Okay,
They
great,
they
great.
indulged him. He also went to Irwin Luck's house.
Oh, very nice.
Yeah,
Lovely.
and Jeff was very, very good. He waited for him. He kind of took him to everything.
Took him around.
He showed
Lovely.
me Baba's room. Oh my God. He says the energy here
Is
is so
unbelievable.
good. Yeah, he says,
Unbelievable.
I was surprised. He said it's like you can feel it more than the samadhi.
Yes. I mean, I would say same as Samadhi. So I mean, do you know the history
Samadhi we
of
have
that
got
building?
used to.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that new
Baba
environment
has
surrounding
asked.
gives you a different feel. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. So very,
So
very,
when
very
that building,
pleased that
when
he
that,
was able to go.
I'm glad to, yeah.
मुझे तो लगता है कि
The-
मैं ही चली गई.
Anyway,
Yeah.
let's continue. You should read about the special effort Baba took in constructing that building. If you have seen American buildings, homes, they are all made of wood.
Hmm.
This is a double concrete wall, double
Yeah.
concrete. So two walls of concrete, and obviously he was doing something. Only that room.
Yeah.
So the house is
Right,
all
right.
wood. Okay. The house is all wood. Only Baba's room, he has requested for double concrete and it's made like that. It's unbelievable, right? And Baba visited almost 12 years later after it was built.
Mm-hmm.
So it's amazing how
Right, right.
works, or we all have to experience it. Okay, so the subtopics in part 2, by the
Yeah.
way, part 2, yeah,
So you want
is,
to read the subtopics first? I can read it.
yes, yeah, then you
So
can, yeah, I'll just read it,
I'll
and
read the, yeah. So part 2
I'll
is
just read.
hell and heaven,
1 second, I'll just
subjectivity
read
of,
the,
yeah.
okay, yeah, please go ahead.
I have
Please
the
go ahead.
book, so I can read it
So you
easily.
can read the titles, yes,
Yeah.
please.
Subjectivity of life after death, hell and heaven states. Then we have desires and experiences intensified after death, fulfillment of desires through thought, heaven on earth, coarser desires contribute to hell state, difference between coarser and finer desires, then bodily sensations of coarser desires, sufferings of hell and pleasures of heaven. Time is semi-subtle, time in semi-subtle world, vivification of impressions, termination of hell and heaven, retrospective survey of earthly experiences, analogy of cinema, assimilation of earthly experiences, heaven and hell, and release of wisdom. These are the subtitles of part 2 of reincarnation and karma. Okay.
There's, before you start, there's, for me, the big word that I get reminded whenever I think of death, or the time between death and the next birth, is vivification of experiences, right? And vivification of impressions. One more I picked up in these subtitles is the retro, right? So it's a retrospective survey of earthly experiences. So हो गया, जो होना था हो गया, आपने retrospective survey करना है, and that's what happens between birth and death. It's, I mean, these words and the choice of words and phrases, the more you uh, sink into it and understand it, you enjoy it so much. Anyway,
Mhm.
let's
Yeah.
get
I mean,
started.
people are who about to pass away suddenly start recalling to so many old things. People who were connected 40 years back, they just remember their names. We have all, I think, seen
Hmm.
all this.
No, but the
That's
vivification and
vivification.
retro,
Yeah.
yeah,
Retro. Yeah.
vivification and retro is post death. So
Yeah.
Baba says in the period between you getting the next birth, you actually replay the whole thing, and that's what we'll learn in this part, right? So, in, yeah, obviously, time is different in subtle sphere. Time is not the same. So you can actually, if you've undergone suffering, you undergo suffering again. If you've undergone joy, you experience that joy again that you've experienced in gross form in normal time. But in
Mm.
quickened time, in a vivified form, you go through that. And that's what is the boiling oil. That's symbology. The
Yeah.
hell and boiling oil is symbology to make people who are unsure of all this to explain, to make it simple for them. But
Yeah.
this is the boiling oil, right?
Health state.
Anyway, yeah, let's go.
After death, there is no consciousness of the gross world for the ordinary soul. Since such consciousness is directly dependent on the physical body. Though the consciousness of the gross world is thus lost, the impressions of the experiences of the gross world are retained in the mental body and they continue to express themselves through the semi subtle world. During the interval between death and the next incarnation, the consciousness of the soul is turned towards these impressions, resulting in a vivification of expressions, of impressions, and the revival of corresponding experiences. However, this soul does not become aware of the subtle environment. It is wrapped up in complete subjectivity and absorbed in living to the revived impressions. In life after death, the experiences of pain and pleasure become much more intense than they were in earthly life. These subjective states of intensified suffering and joy are called hell and heaven. Hell and heaven are states of mind. They should not be looked upon as being places. And though subjectively they mean a great deal to the individualized soul, they are both illusions within the greater illusion. Subtitle is Hell and Heaven States. In the hell state, as in the heaven state, desires become much more intense since they no longer require expressions through the gross medium. Like desires, the experiences incurred in their fulfillment or non-fulfillment also become greatly intensified. In the earthly carrier, desires as well as the pleasures and the sufferings they bring are experienced through the medium of the gross body. The soul is, of course, actually using its higher bodies at the same time, but in the earthly carrier, its consciousness is bound up with the gross body. Therefore, the processes of consciousness have to pass through an additional wheel that lessens their force, liveliness, and intensity. Just as rays of light are dimmed when they are required to pass through thick glass, during habitation of the body, desires and experiences suffer a deterioration in intensity. But when that habitation is given up, they undergo a relative increase of intensity. So basically, I think it is also in another message is given. The gross body keeps you kind of grounded. Suppose we had just the mental and subtle bodies, probably we would have been everywhere, and we there is no system that can persist. Probably gross body brings in a normality and a subduedness and structure to the whole thing. So in some other message, this kind of message is given. That's why cross body is important. Uh,
Mm.
Next is fulfillment of desires through thought. In the heaven state, fulfillment of desires is not, as in the gross sphere, dependent upon having the object of desire. Let me read it again. In the heaven state, the fulfillment of desires is not, as in the gross sphere, dependent on having the subject object of desire. Fulfillment of desire comes merely through thinking of the object desired. For example, if a person wishes to hear exquisite music, he experiences this pleasure merely by thinking about it. The imaginative idea of exquisite music becomes, in this state, a substitute for the physical sound vibrations in the gross sphere. The pleasure he derives from the thought of exquisite music is much greater than the pleasure he derived in his earthly career from the actual hearing of physical sounds. In the heaven state, there are no obstacles between desires and the fulfillment. The pleasure of self fulfillment through thought or feeling is always at hand. Yeah, this is what I was trying to say.
Mm.
Heaven on earth. In fact, even in the earthly sphere of existence, some individuals develop this capacity of making their pleasure independent of possession of a gross object. Beethoven, for example, was completely deaf, and yet, through the exercise of imagination alone, he was able to enjoy intensely his own compositions of music. In a sense, even on earth, he might figuratively be said to have been in the heaven state. In the same way, a person who meditates on the beloved with love derives happiness merely through the thought of the beloved without requiring his physical presence. After death, In the heaven state, the enjoyment of such imaginative fulfillment is infinitely greater since consciousness is then unburdened of the outermost veil of the gross body. Coarser desires contribute to hell state. Some desires have a direct relation to the possession and assimilation of gross objects through the gross body. The coarser desires, such as lust, gluttony, or the craving for alcohol or drugs, are of this type. These desires are specifically earthly because they are possessive and they involve an element of clinging to the physical object. In these desires, there is not only a preponderance of sensations derived from contact with the object, but also of those sensations that constitute the response of the body itself. These coarser desires contribute to the health state. Difference between coarser and finer desires. In contrast with the finer desires, the coarser desires place an infinitely heavier premium on mere sensations, quite independently of any intellectual meaning or moral value. In the finer desires, such as the desire for music, there is, of course, an element of wanting sense contact with the physical sounds. But these sounds become important not so much in their own right as in their capacity to express beauty. But these sounds become important not so much in their own right as in their capacity to express beauty. In the same way, a desire to hear discourses has a hold upon the mind, not so much because of the sensation of sound, but because the intellectual meaning and emotional appeal they convey.
Just can you pause
Wow,
a little bit, Sanjay?
yeah, beautiful. Yes, Mark.
Yeah. Uh, so uh, it's important to know, just for, as earlier we read, particularly a heaven or hell, but I'm going to talk about heaven. It's, unlike well, I'm talking about Muslim. I don't know enough about Hinduism, or Christianity, the same. Christianity uh, and is Muslim or Mohammedan, they have similarity in this. It's not a location where they put you there. Um, it's a correlation. Well, it's good. It was a good reminder now that it's a correlation between your desire, for example, to see angels, and then through your imagination, it's available to you. Whatever that you desire to see, you can see. And this made me think that if we still have desires, which Baba oftentimes say become desire free, even when we go there, the life after death, still we are entangled with those, because still that question of wanting is there. I want to see this, I want to see that, I want to see beauty. And through that wanting, looks like, this is what I gathered from this reading, we go about imagining that, and it only appears, um, which again, we're creating our own hell and heaven state. Has nothing to do with, prophet and this and that, or imam or whatever, priest. It has nothing to do with that.
Yeah, yeah. It's our own
Yeah,
creation. I mean, 100% agree with that. We create our own heavens and hells. That's
yeah,
very good
yeah.
comment. I like that. Yeah, it's up to us.
And what is your, uh, what do you think is a good example of coarser desire? compared to the finer. I was just trying to.
So coarser desires are the ones which are related to gross, the
Yeah.
sensation, the gluttony. I think it is written here.
Lust, gluttony, craving for
Gluttony,
alcohol, drugs.
yeah, alcohol,
Yeah.
drugs, which are directly connected with the body. These are the coarser
Uh-huh.
desires because they keep you attached to the body. And even if
Yeah.
you go after death, those desires try to cling to the body again, and that creates, because that body is not there, create that suffering for you. That's what I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah.
Jai
This
Because
Baba,
is in
those
I
desires,
have a
yeah,
it
great,
says, yeah.
welcome,
yeah.
yeah, come. Your audio is quite bad.
Five physical
Much.
sensations.
You have to start
You
Repeat
again.
have
that
you have to
again.
start again.
Uh, okay, hold on. Yeah, hello, Jai Baba. Hello,
Yeah,
can you hear me?
Yes,
yeah,
yes,
yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. My observation is that basically we are dealing with the five physical sensations of the gross body: touch, taste, sound, smell, sight. Of the material body, let's say gross, subtle, and mental body. So the five sensations, touch and taste, are the coarser desires. Touch, you can take the example of carnal pleasure. Taste is gluttony, food. And here you need the physical object to fulfill your desire. So that is why they are the coarser desires. The finer desires, sound of music, smell of flowers. Sight is like traveling and seeing all the sights, the seven wonders of the world. All these are finer desires, but they are not as bad as the coarser desires, but they are still desires. Just like we have the gross impressions, subtle impressions, and mental impressions. So these are the five physical sensations. And then you have the two mental sensations of thought and feeling. Thought, as you know, from the fifth plane, which is the domain of mind dealing with thoughts, and sixth plane, domain of mind dealing with feelings. Even those two are a form of desire, because if you remember, gross, subtle, and mental sphere of existence are all part of the illusion. Except that as you go higher and higher, especially when you're in the fifth and sixth plane, there is no regression or retrogression, coming back. So in that sense, these seven sensations, five physical sensations and two mental sensations, are basically a form of desire. So that is why the difference between coarser and finer desires. That is my understanding. Jai Baba. And also,
I have a comment to make, yeah.
Yeah.
In regard to what you just said. I have read, and this is Baba, all this, I'm not sure about fifth and sixth planes and desires. I don't know enough about that. But in regards to the desires to fulfill, uh, the five or touch, the five senses, these are all very specific and, for the gross world and gross consciousness. Once we finish our gross consciousness completely, which by the grace of the master, he pushes us through the internal world and first plane and second plane and that. Once you go there, of course, your gross desires are finished. So, uh, with the subtle world and subtle consciousness, of course, there are subtle desires. And again, I don't know about mental, so I can't talk about that. With those, if you are like, let's say, first plane or second or third plane of consciousness, with there is no hell and heaven state anymore. Hell and heaven state is only applicable to the soul that leave the body and still they possess the gross consciousness. So that's how Baba designed it. How Baba deals with the subtle and mental desires or sanskaras, I don't know. I just, it's beyond my pay grade. But I know that the hell and heaven state is only for people who have gross consciousness, even for the finer desires. Still, as long as it has a desires for, like, you just said it, you have a desire to hear nice music, Beethoven music, right? Or you have a desire to go and see a beauty of nature and so
But
forth. Those
attachment to
are still
people,
finer.
attachment to people is
Yeah,
also comes under that category. So it's
yeah,
both.
yeah. That also, yeah, that
Or
considers to
possessions,
be.
not only people, it's
Basically, that
possessions, my car, my house, it's not just
Yeah,
the touch and gluttony, but even those cause you that hell pain after your death because of your over attachment to physical objects, your house, your car, your friends, somebody you loved so dearly. So even that attachments. Is that fine understanding, Hamaji?
yeah,
Jai Baba,
it is actually. Hmm.
well, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
go ahead.
Good, good.
Yeah, I think that it's very simple. Gross, subtle, and mental sphere of existence are part of the illusion. If you go veiled, if you don't have to go through the planes, between the first subtle plane, the fourth subtle plane, we know there are different siddhis that you get. If you take those siddhis and misuse them, then you're deviating from your real path of liberation. So that is why Baba said, go veiled. And we also know that in the fifth and sixth plane, yes, domain of mind with thoughts, there is still the duality because the whole process is
We lost your voice, Kamaji.
there is the
Yeah.
subject that you as the, sorry, am-
Yeah.
in Hyderabad and near D hostel. So what I'm trying to say is that even sixth plane, where there is only one obstacle, which is the division between the lover and the beloved, that is also part of the illusion. So the higher you go, as we say, coarser desires to finer desires. So definitely the desire for God realization or liberation is a good thing because we are covered with sanskaras and we want to unite with our own realized self. Baba, as we know, is a drop soul, is God in human form. He is the representative of God, right? So he was also before the avatar became God realized, he was just like another drop soul like us. It's just a designation, what I call as eternal chairman emeritus. So the question out here is that heaven and hell state are basically, from what I've understood from near-death experience and all that, what I've read and listened, that when you go to the astral world, when you drop your physical body, what we call a so-called death, you see a performance review of your past life, and then you have to go through the heaven and hell state, which is what is written in this reincarnation.
Losing you again, Kamaji. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you drop your body, you are experiencing the heaven and hell state, which is similar to the pleasure and pain that you experience in the gross world, but it is of a very high degree. So that is the point out here. So whether you're on the first plane or the sixth plane, yes, it's good to be on the sixth plane because you're doing your PhD out there. You're almost getting your PhD. So the first plane is, you probably are in high school or higher secondary or college or whatever like that. So heaven and hell state, I think the whole idea out here is that there is nothing wrong in enjoying life because you have been given this earth, this planet. Okay, you have this body because the material body's sole purpose is for the consciousness to liberate itself. But that doesn't mean you have to be a monk and be, celibate or whatever. The point here is not to be attached. You can enjoy life, but don't get attached. It's almost like a paradoxical statement. So the better thing is not to indulge in any desire and reduce the number of desires as much as possible to a finer desire of only God realization. And then you are in the money, Jai Baba.
You're in the money. I like that.
Right, right.
Jai
All this is
Baba.
Baba's.
Yeah.
All this is Baba's.
Yeah.
That's Baba has said that.
I have
we're
a
happy.
point to make. I have a point to make. I don't think being veiled is our choice. That's I think Kama just talked about it. Being veiled is the decision that either if you're in the hand of perfect master or avatar, they choose to do that for you. Baba definitely says that with perfect masters that he has to fulfill all the obligation that he has with people who have past contact with and develop his 12 disciples or whatever. He says normally they prefer to take you through these 7 planes blindfolded, because they feel that every one of those experiences or they sidetrack you from your spiritual journey.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but I really think, unless this is my opinion and my
Right.
life.
Correct.
I
Because
feel that the more that we really don't pay attention to desires that we have, the better it will be. In my case, I can't speak with others, but with us, I don't see us having a lot of discipline of, for example, going to movie and enjoy it, or going to relationship, and don't build the coarser desire or finer desire. It's there. It's Maya. Maya is there to catch us, okay? And we constantly are in battle with it. Well, of course, Baba helps us with that, but I'm just saying that with desires, I have nothing to do with desires. Yeah, and Baba specifically places has said, if you can, it is better to be celibate, and even in if your relationship. So there are places that he's giving hint as to how not to get entangled in these desires. That's my opinion.
I think that blindfoldness, blind fold taking
Veiled.
is veiled, is journey uh, is also connected with, as Baba says, is your complete obedience and surrender. When we Baba, that is why so much of insistence on obedience. Just obey me. That itself says that you put all your thoughts and minds. What is, because he cannot be teaching you why he is doing everything and taking you forward. So just obey me, because our minds are so little, so small. It's like our consciousness levels are so low. He cannot be explaining him, or God, the perfect master cannot be explaining him why he is doing what he is doing. So just obey. That's all. Dimag ban, and go ahead with him whatever he's saying. So I think that's also related to this requirement of veiled journey, yeah? which is better. Complete surrender is
To
better.
add to what Sanjay says, I think he's talking about the love, obedience, surrender, sacrifice. Surrender is almost like provisional work. And
Audio, Kamaji.
Kama, you need a new phone.
So what I'm saying is
We are not able to hear you.
Sorry, words, provisional work.
Yeah.
Above.
Okay. So,
Okay, all we heard was provisional working ego, but we get it.
okay. So we read a bit and then maybe discuss again when Kama has a better signal.
Sure. Yeah. Or maybe you have to restart your phone. I think it's phone, not network, it's phone. Please continue, Sanjay.
Thus, in the finer desires, the actual sensations play a subordinate role to the derivatives aspects based on the sensations. In the coarser desires, the chief element is provided by the actual sensation connected with a physical object, and the sensations aroused by them through bodily response to their possession. The organic sensation of the physical body play the greatest part in experiences connected with the coarser desires. Through them, the individualized soul feels its own existence as the gross body much more effectively and vividly than through experiences connected with finer desires. Almost the entire significance of experiences brought about by the fulfillment or non fulfillment of coarser desire is constituted by the bodily sensation themselves. Therefore, they can rarely yield the full experience of fulfillment achieved through finer desires merely by the exercise of thought and imagination. So, coarser desires cannot be experienced by the exercise of thought and emotion, as the example of Beethoven that Baba gave. It is characteristic of the coarser desires to insist on the possession and assimilation of the gross object themselves. In any imaginative idea of the gross objects merely serves the purpose of accentuating the urge to reach out to them. Since the gross objects of the coarser desires are not available in the semi-subtle world, these desires are mostly productive of an intensified experience of the suffering of the non-fulfillment. Just as in the gross world, the presence of coarser desires leads to the preponderance of suffering over pleasure. In the life after death, the revived experiences connected with these coarser objects, desires, also lead to a preponderance of suffering over pleasure, thus bringing into existence the hell state. Similarly, in the life after death, the revived experiences connected with the finer desires lead to a preponderance of pleasure over suffering, thus bringing into existence the heaven state. I think quite clearly explained why and how you get there. Yeah. Time in semi-subtle world. Hell and heaven are both states of bondage. However, and, and subject to the limitation of the opposites of pleasures and pain. Both are states whose duration is determined by the nature, amount, and intensity of accumulated impressions. Time in the semi-subtle world is not the same as time in the gross world due to the increased subjectivity of the states of consciousness. Though time in the semi-subtle world is thus incommensurable with the time in the gross world, it is strictly determined by the impressions accumulated in the gross world. However, the important fact is that the hell state and the heaven state are far from being lasting. And after they have served their purpose, the life of the individualized soul, they both come to an end. Vivification of impressions. The coarser sensual desires like lust and their emotional products like hate and anger all contribute to the life of delusion and suffering prevalent in the hell state. The finer desires, like idealistic aspirations, aesthetic and scientific interests, goodwill towards neighbors and others, and their emotional products, like personal love or fellow being, contribute to the life of entitlement, enlightenment, and pleasure prevalent in the heaven state. These states for most souls consist in reliving the experiences of the earthly life by vivification of the impressions left by them. Their duration and nature are dependent on the duration and nature of experiences undergone by the soul while in the physical body.
Karthik, you need to roll it up. Yeah, we
Yeah, yeah,
couldn't. I could. Can you read it again?
yeah.
I'm sorry, I
The
got
last line, yeah.
distracted.
The last line, yeah.
Yeah, their
Sorry about
duration
that.
and nature are dependent upon the duration and nature of the experiences undergone by the soul while in the physical body. Okay, so if you see weight, so it's like that how much you have accumulated, same results after that. Yeah. Termination of hell and heaven. Yeah,
Just one thing I wanted to mention just occurred to me. You know, on some place, Baba, there has a discourse that is he talks about the importance of attaining. It's called the importance of attaining human body. How important it is, and like you said, Sanjay, this that gross consciousness is important uh, to ground us, to
yeah.
control us, to ground us, so we don't wave around and be mastani here, there. It's important, and so through. But here's the catch: that this physical body comes with that five sensations. So Baba is working, with all of us to, and all the people of the world to know that they can't be trapped with these experiences, and they have to rise above it instead of falling in it. Like Erich used to say, says, "Oh, I fall in love." No, no, there is no such thing as falling in love. He said, "Rise in love." We've got to rise in love. So, same thing. And people, when I look around, social media, everybody is looking for happiness. Most people are looking for happiness, but because their consciousness is not developed enough, they go about it in a wrong way. They go about it to get the fulfillment through bodily sensation and the objects and touching objects and stuff like that. So, in a way, I feel for them, quite honestly, that they don't know any better. Yet, Baba said, whether you know, whether you don't want it, you'll be accountable for those sanskaras. So that's the catch that we've got to be compassionate about, Yeah.
I think that is why there is so much of stress on love for him. Remember me and love me. Because once you do that, you automatically detach, sense of detachment with everything else starts developing. So I think that's the reason. Yeah,
Definitely,
yeah. So yeah, yeah.
definitely,
So he
no
has
doubt.
he
Yeah.
has not said go and get attached. He has of course said that, but his more insistence on loving him, remembering him all the time, taking his name and remembering him, most importantly, loving him as we love our fellow beings. And also love our fellow beings because I am in everyone else. So once you do that, your attachment part, the gross part of your this thing goes low and low and low, and that health state sufferings become lesser and lesser, and you enjoy your relationship, pure relationship, even in after your death, as we read in the previous paragraphs, that you enjoy even those relationships post death because if they're so pure and without any self-interest. So that's the beauty. Yeah, there, Baba. So we need to live our life thinking about what we just read. You know, uh, Having pure relationship, good
Yeah.
friends,
And putting it into practice
putting
in every
yeah,
in every stage and every minute of life. Yeah.
right.
You
Jay
know,
Baba,
it,
can you hear me? Hello? Jay
Yes,
Yes.
Baba, can you hear me?
Yes, please.
yeah,
Okay. Just my observation. First of all, I think that whether you're a Baba lover or a non-Baba lover, the regular society, whatever is going through, is not in the Baba University. That's fine. But even within the Baba community, like I've said earlier, the 80-20 rule, the RBC and the BBC, the Real Baba Club and the Blah Blah Club, we as Baba lovers ourselves are going through those kind of challenges, even with having a framework from Baba. So I think that it's a individual experience. So what I want to say out here is that the love part everybody keeps talking. Love is always around us like oxygen, divine love. What is the challenge here is the ego part. And loving Baba means loving everything, both human beings, animate and inanimate objects in the world, able to have this beautiful relationships where you are not judging, where you're accepting the way things are. You're playing this game with sportsman spirit, not creating penalties or sanskaras. So coming back to that comment where we said this human body has been given, yes, the human body has been given because this is where consciousness has become full and complete, which is like super consciousness, but is covered by a layer of sanskaras, which is our ego mind. And the ego mind is manifesting through lust, greed, and anger, or all the infatuation, lust, greed, anger, jealousy, fear, worry, which is what we are trying to work on. So it is not about loving Baba. It is loving Baba is a kind of a symbolic expression of how we deal with our outer relationship, our inner self, the way we behave in the world. As far as I'm concerned, all the people in the world, the 8 billion people in the world are God realized, but not behaving like God. In the sense that everybody talks about God, everybody knows the Ten Commandments, everybody knows the Patanjali Sutras, etc. But it's putting into practice. And the practice is more about the ego part, how to dissolve your ego by good relationships.
right,
So love is something like, like we breathing, but we are not conscious that we are breathing oxygen unless we start meditating. We are always thinking when we are awake. So that is the conundrum out here, is to love Baba is to love everybody the way they are, and whatever tests you are given in life is just a challenge, just like being in the ball game. So this is my observation, that I'm focused
right.
more on dissolution of ego. And that
Yeah.
is what, just talking about love Baba doesn't make any sense, Jai Baba.
No, love, Baba means, Kamaji, my this thing is love means you just can't live without him. You just keep remembering him. That love automatically dissolves your ego. You don't have to specifically
I think
work.
remembering,
I mean,
remembering,
that's
remember,
what I
remembering
feel.
is not good
Remembering
enough.
and
I
loving.
think it should.
Yeah.
No.
So
Remembering means
remembering
it's like the
in a
prayer of
sense,
repentance, action of
yeah,
thoughts, action of words, and action of deeds. That is
absolutely
remembrance.
correct.
So let's
So
be very clear on, like, just
right.
throwing a word like as Baba said, everybody knows the phrase,
So
real happiness lies in making others happy. But the
right.
real meaning out here is the only real desire is the desire to
To be
become
with
perfect so as to help others become perfect. And the only
right.
real aim is that which aims you to help others become God by first attaining Godhood yourself. So I think the whole love business is all about the action of thoughts, action of words, and action of deeds. These three
Correct.
simple basic things that run our life.
Ramaji, we are saying the
So,
same thing. If I love Baba, I follow what he has said, what
so
he
let's not
expects
talk.
me to do.
Let's not talk about
Yeah,
love.
so
No,
that's
no.
what
Talk.
it is. That's
Let's
what
be
it is.
specific. No, 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 no. I
Yeah.
don't think people understand that. Let's talk about the love is just a word. There are different forms of love. When you say Baba love, how many people understand what is Baba love?
No, I
I'm
know.
sorry.
There are a variety of people.
So we
That's
can't
there.
just
But
assume and keep saying love Baba, love Baba. It doesn't make any
love Baba
sense.
means follow him. Of course, it means that. It is not just
Follow him
remembering,
what? Follow what? Follow
follow
what?
what Baba's message is. There's so many
Okay.
messages Baba has given which help us to live our life properly, right?
All
What he
right.
expects from us. Start loving others by loving those whom you cannot love. As
No,
simple
no,
as
that
that.
all we know. It is like saying
Yeah.
following the Ten
So,
Commandments. What is the difference?
correct. So,
Following
real
Baba and following the Ten Commandments, is
love
there any
means
difference?
everybody doesn't just become perfect on a day one. It is a journey. So, शनाय शनाय जिसे हम लोग संस्कृत में बोलते हैं, it is just needs your focus. You love him means follow him what he is saying, what he expects. Make yourself worthy of his love. Return his love back to him because the love, it is not our love that we are giving back to Baba. It is his love and make it purer and perfect as we pass on. That's what my understanding is. Loving means doesn't mean I just keep doing some bhajan or mandali and this is love. This is not loving. Loving is to follow him. I mean, typically in world also, suppose somebody loves his wife so dearly, you try to follow all her desires, her slightest emotion, even by not, she doesn't tell you anything to do, but you still do it and understand what she's looking for. So that's the love. So in spiritual sense, it is even higher. So that's what is my understanding at least. Yeah, Jai Baba.
So Baba
So
is
what you
just a
are saying and
coach.
I am
Baba is
saying is
just a coach
exactly
or guide.
same.
Yes, yes. We are
Yeah,
saying
yeah,
the same
yeah.
thing in different
Yes,
ways.
different forms.
For me,
Correct,
Baba
correct.
is only the coach or guide. I have to
Yes,
do the work. I have to play this
yes.
game to the
You will
fullest
do
of my
only if you
ability.
follow him and
Just talking about
make him
Baba is not
happy.
going to help, Otherwise, we'll
Absolutely,
be
absolutely.
keeping the blah 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 blah
Perfect.
club, the BBC. Like, yeah, that's what I'm trying to say.
Completely. I am on the same page. Yeah. Yeah. Jai Baba.
Oh, but I think the Kama, your anxiety will be lesser if you just stick to what you started this whole comment with, and which is you said there are different kinds of people, and in the same way there are different kinds of words, and there is different kinds of messages. So you cannot wish away certain type of people, and it's not. Though I like your evangelistic zeal to reform the world, it's not going to happen overnight. That's what Baba wants to do as well. I'm just making a broader philosophical
Plus one
point.
more
Yeah.
thing. Plus one more thing, Kartik. And
Hmm.
that is everybody. Baba says, even the way that you move your finger, even the way that you look at somebody, it's all due to your sanskaras, okay? Your past sanskaras. So based on what sanskaras we bring to this incarnation, for example, then our relationship with our master or God are based on that. I've seen it. Some people's path are obedience. They're very good at obedience. Some people's path is love. Some people's path is knowledge. So it naturally comes within us. And then Baba helps for that to flourish, to come about. So there is not only one way of loving God, depends on where our consciousness is. And there is nothing wrong with remembering Baba. So otherwise, he wouldn't say, remember me.
Yes.
Because it may start from there. It starts from there. And once he sees that our deeds, words, and action is based on remembering him, then he takes our hand and move us a little bit closer, a little bit closer. Otherwise, without his help is not possible. That's my faith. You know,
Absolutely.
his
Nothing Baba has said is to be taken only in the literal sense, right? So there are multiple levels and multiple interpretations that are possible, and it's all left to the individual's sanskaric makeup and level of evolution and stage he is in. So yeah, agreed.
I just
See,
wanted to
Jai
add,
Baba,
Karthik,
my point is that very simple. There are only two kinds of action: intelligent action, unwinding sanskaras, and unintelligent action, which is spending sanskaras. And within that, we have basically the action of thoughts, action of words, and action of deeds. This is common to everybody. How you go about it is a very personal thing. So
Yeah.
I don't want to get carried by words. I just want to that we are basically in our waking state. When we wake up in the morning, if you are conscious and aware of ourselves and we remember Baba, hopefully we do intelligent action. And if we don't remember Baba or love Baba, as they say, then we are probability is that we might do unintelligent action, which is spending samskaras. That's it.
Yes.
Whether it's in the form of
Yes.
action of thoughts,
Absolutely.
words, and deeds. Simple as that.
Absolutely.
That's
Absolutely.
it.
Absolutely.
That's it. Yes. It's very simple. Yeah.
Deceptively simple.
Yeah. Deceptively
Yeah.
simple.
it's very simple, Karthik, and I want to add that real happiness lies in making others happy. I think Baba has given that one line. So, and of course, constant remembrance. He says, and remembrance with full uh, conviction and dedication is what I think is a very namasmaran
Yeah.
for the simple,
Yeah.
you know, I mean the bhakti marga people. Of course, there are both types, bhakti and jnana marga. But I mean, just remembering him with full, dedication, full conviction is good enough. I think is a good starting point. Then thereafter you can build on that. Does it make sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
So uh, I think that's it. And every day in this meeting, every weekend we remember him and we dedicate ourselves to him. That's what is important, I think.
Yeah. So we are at least creating sanskaras which are not connected to gross body.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
better chances of some enjoyment in the heaven state. And
Yes, we're at least
at least to that extent, the waking state, 1.5 hours or 3 hours in a week, if we may say so, minimum, remembering him.
and maybe if we are not creating sanskaras, maybe some of the sanskaras hopefully are getting
But we
unwound.
don't know.
We don't know,
Because-
but at
Yeah.
least it's a good activity which we are doing.
Yeah. Yeah, Baba.
I think that. And
Jai
I
Baba,
think,
look, hello, Jai Baba. Look,
Yes.
what we are talking about is remembering Baba. Like, for example, I'm in Mehrabad. I'm doing a pilot test for myself. I get up in the morning, 4:30. I don't go to the Samadhi for the 7 o'clock thing. I just come at breakfast and I go to the Samadhi and spend 1.5 hours. And then I go back to my room, do my nitty gritty. And then after lunch, again, I go to the Samadhi because it's very silent. So again, 1.5 hours. And then again, during Aarti, evening Aarti, I go there and sit and listen to the bhajans and keep my eyes closed. I don't try to mingle, the way I used to. I just sit in one place and if people come to me, fine. So as somebody said rightly, 1 hour, 1.5 hours, whatever you can do. So I'm really testing myself to see living in Mehrabad and just focusing on Baba in my own way. Will it, can I see some
Yes,
progress on myself?
Yes.
So just,
It's very
so I just
difficult.
want to
It's
tell you,
very difficult.
I just want to tell you guys, make your money, take your money and run and come to Mehrabad and hang out. That's what I would like to tell you. Jai Baba.
It's the sadhana, very difficult to, isolate yourself. And otherwise, typically we start, entangling with people around. So it's always making
Yeah,
yourself
absolutely.
very
Yeah, if
focused.
you send
It's
us
not
if you
easy.
send us some money, we will do that, particularly
Absolutely.
from
Kama,
US.
not everybody was an investment banker in Manhattan. Okay.
No. Don't go there, Ashokji.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
up to us. It's up
I'm
to us
just
to
joking.
prioritize our lives. Yeah. Jai Baba. Jai Baba.
No, to each his own. Yeah.
Jai Baba.
Anyway,
I think
we will.
we are almost
Correct.
at
We'll
9.
wrap up for today. Yeah, we'll wrap up for today. And we'll catch up and continue from this point on. Yeah. Lovely discussion.
Lovely discussion. Enjoyed. Hopefully
Yes.
learned.
Have
Yeah,
a
it's always good.
yes.
Discourses are
Yes.
always good.
Jai Baba.
Have a good
Jai Baba,
have a good week ahead.
next, yeah, Next Sunday, I'm sorry. Yeah, your time Sunday. Mine is Saturday night. I wouldn't be able to attend because we're going to graduation, ceremony, and after that for my niece.
Ah,
So
nice. Which university?
at UCLA. She's
Ah, okay, nice.
graduating, yeah, from UCLA, and so excited. She calls like once a week almost. So we go to pay the
Nice.
tribute. And last week I wasn't here. Was it last week? Yeah. I went to graduation for another niece to New Jersey, Princeton. She got her doctoral degree. Some
Holy.
people, like to be an academic role, like what we're saying, everybody is different. They like to just stay in university forever.
Yeah. There are
So
people like that.
that's, yeah, so that was very majestic, I would say. I've never
Quest
been
for
into
learning never
that
stops.
can, yeah. So
Lovely.
Baba.
So enjoy that, and
Thank
let's
you.
catch up next week. Have a great week
Yeah.
ahead, everybody.
Thank you.
Sar
Same to you
Meher
guys.
Baba
Jai
Ki
Baba
Jai.
Tol,
Baba.
Meher Baba
Ka-
Ki
Kar-
Jai.
Jai Baba ki Jai. Karthik, give me a call after this if you can, if you have time. Just give me a call, okay? Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.